Hi guys, I want to talk to you now a little bit about just footwork basics, the fundamentals of footwork, and as again part of my philosophy, how you can use these fundamentals to go to more advanced levels of play. Now, when we talk about footwork and we tend to talk about good footwork or bad footwork, I think it's kind of important to really define what we're talking about when we say this is good for footwork versus this is bad footwork. Okay? Now, some people will look at the smoothness of a person moving around the court. If he looks kind of good in terms of table tennis, and this is again one of these things. It's a bit like they say when they're talking about pornography. You know it when you see it. Okay? Some people, when they move around the court, they just look good. They look smooth. It looks easy, and they're balanced, and they're in position, and they kind of just glide around the court, making it look easy. Okay? Now, is that good footwork? Well, possibly. It might be good footwork. Looking good's not really the criteria when I'm going to talk about good footwork. I'm not talking about looking good. I'm talking about being effective. And that means, okay, I've got to tell you what I think you need for effective footwork. Okay? For effective footwork, what you've got is, I think footwork is effective or footwork is good if, okay, firstly, it gets you where you need to be. So you've got to actually get there. There's no point looking good if you're not actually in the spot you need to be. So that's criteria number one. Did it actually get you to the place you've got to go? Secondly, did it get you there in a balanced manner so that when you actually get there, are you able to play an effective shot? So there's no point, again, getting there in time but being horribly off balance every time. Okay? That's not good footwork. It may be quick footwork, but it doesn't make it good footwork. Okay? So footwork to me is getting there on time, getting there in a balanced manner so that you are able to play your most effective shot, and then getting in position or preparing for the next shot. And that's not necessarily, I don't necessarily mean going to the next ball, but giving yourself the best chance of getting to where the next ball is going to be. It's not exactly the same thing, but I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Okay, so when we're talking about footwork, what I'm kind of going to try and demonstrate for you here is really, I guess, what you call 4 basic techniques. Firstly, one-step footwork, where you only step with one foot. That makes sense. Then you've got your basic shuffle step footwork, which is very common and you see a lot. We've got crossover footwork, where the feet are going to cross over. And we've also got what you could almost call anti-footwork, which is when you don't use your footwork at all, but you actually lean to play the stroke instead and don't use your feet. And that has a place as well. Okay. Now, just while we're front on, I'm just going to illustrate a little bit here. You can't obviously see my feet, but there is a little bit of stuff I just want to talk about first to give you an idea. We have a very good elderly, not that elderly, but a very good older gentleman who used to be one of the top world players about 30, 40 years ago. Very good player by the name of Dennis Chen, or Mr. Chen. He's getting a little bit older, but what he does is just something I want to mention to you, and it's something that's very valuable, I think, for any of us who are not necessarily training 6 hours a day. Okay? And what he does is, even as he's getting older, he doesn't necessarily move like lightning around the court. But what he does do very well is take one step in any direction towards that ball. And he does it smoothly, and he doesn't do it at lightning speed, but he always anticipates to get into that right spot. And by using just sort of one step a lot, he can cover a lot of the table. And to illustrate that, just imagine again, just to demonstrate, if I'm here in a fairly basic ready position, just a little bit to the left of the centre line, because I can cover more with my forehand than my backhand. And if I'm down and unbalanced here, so I'm basically in a good ready position. Now, from here, if someone's going to put the ball out to my forehand, if I take just one simple step to my right, so just a basic little shuffle step, I can now cover, and as you can see on the camera really there, I've got my bat basically just about off camera. Okay? I'm a good 1.5 to 2 feet wide of the centre line. That was one step from my middle position. And again, one step back, I'm back in position. If I want to go one step to this side, I'm now way out here. Okay? Again, with one step. So, in order of covering a lot of ground, it's not always about moving fast or taking lots of steps. But if you're in position and you're ready and you see your opponents going out that way and you take one step over, you can cover up an awful lot of ground in one step. And for a close to the table player, like a lot of us who are in this course are going to be, for a close to the table player, if you just use basically this one step principle of be ready, going out that way, be ready to take one step, you can cover all the way over here, back to your middle, cover all the way over there, and really from the central position, one step in each direction covers 95% of any angle your opponent can do. So it's not about necessarily being lightning quick. What it is about is being ready, taking a step in the right direction, playing the ball, and then depending on where you've put the ball, coming back to the right position to put yourself in a central angle again. That's something I'll talk about a little bit later, I think, in terms of angling yourself around the ball. But basically, if I'm here, the ball goes out there. If I play it down the line, I open up that angle, I've got to come a long way back to cover. If instead I move over, play it back cross court, I've only got to come to here. So by intelligently placing the ball, I can cut down on my need for lots of footwork. And that's good footwork in terms of using intelligent placement to cut down your chances of getting past. Now the problem a lot of us have is that when we're playing here, is that the ball goes, we move, we hit, and we stay, and we leave it. And they put it over there, and now we run over, and we're not recovering. It's not just about getting to the ball there, it's then about taking the little shuffle step back to recover. And that's part of good footwork, being able to move back to cover possible angles. Okay? But really the principle I was really just basically trying to highlight is that from close to the table, one step in either direction will cover 95% probably of the table, provided you take the step and stop leaning, you'll be able to play a lot better. And even if you are a person who plays everything with the backhand side, from this position to there, one step I can cover out here, one step back, and again I can cover quite a lot with just simple one step in the right direction. Okay. Now, having said all that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go again to a side view, just to allow you to actually see my feet as I'm moving around while I discuss the one-step footwork, shuffle steps, crossover footwork, and the principle of leaning a little bit to get around the court. Okay. Alright, as promised, I'm just going to demonstrate these techniques of moving around. I'll do them from a side-on view and also from this front-on kind of perspective so you can actually see what's going on. Let's talk about, I'll start first with a couple of the basics, which is really your shuffle step and crossover footwork, which are common and coached a lot. When we talk about a shuffle step, all we're really talking about is from our position. A shuffle step is really the idea of, if I want to go that way, I bring basically the outside foot moves first, so that I always finish on this foot if I'm going that direction. So whatever direction I want to go, if I want to go that way, I want to finish on this foot. If I want to go that way, I want to finish on this foot. So ready, when I shuffle, I don't kind of do it one at a time like, I could do it like that, and sort of older players who are starting to lose a little bit of mobility may need to step, but if you've still got a little bit of flexibility and mobility, it really is just a, so just a little shuffle, 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 shuffle. From a side-on perspective again. And from here you can see, because what's happening here is, as you know and I've mentioned before, my right leg is usually a little bit further back than my left. Now, when I want to shuffle, it's very important for me not to bring my left leg back towards my right. Because if I do, where am I going to end up? I'm going to end up going up at a diagonal. So if I did actually, if I'm here, and I bring my left leg back towards my right and move that way, I'm actually going to go diagonally. So that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is move across to get to the ball. I don't want to move back and across. I want to move towards the camera. So with my feet in this direction, what actually has to happen is my left foot has to move out to here, and my right foot will maintain. Now, you may have already seen my little video on going around the playing arc. If not, check it out, it's quite handy. So, I will be moving around the playing arc at the same time, but that's very different. Moving around the playing arc is very different from moving straight back in the diagonal, which was what will happen if I bring my feet together. I don't want that. What I want is to so from here, left comes across, but not backwards, comes across, right foot comes across. So it is not back, back, it is cross, cross, which is an important difference. It's just something to be aware of. If you do like me and bring that right foot back, you have to be a little bit careful with that, okay? And don't just automatically bring the feet back together. But that's essentially your shuffle step. It is just a simple shuffle. That also is common to what you'll see a lot in top level play. The better players are trying to shuffle step almost wherever possible, because it allows you to stay very nice and balanced and play without losing balance. So a shuffle step is good if you can get there in time, and that depends on the speed of your footwork and the power of your legs and everything like that. But it allows you to move while maintaining balance. Another important point is when I'm moving with my shuffle step is I don't want to stand up in the middle of the shuffle step and then come back down again. So the less I can do this sort of up, down, wastes energy and it takes longer than you need. And it keeps moving your perspective to the ball, which makes it harder to hit. Try and just basically keep your head as level as you can, horizontally so that it doesn't bob up and down any more than it has to. By doing that, your head stays relatively level, your centre of gravity stays low, and more importantly, you're not wasting time going up, pushing up, and coming down again. You're going straight across, which is faster. Okay. But that's your basic shuffle step. Then what we go to is what we call crossover footwork. And to demonstrate that, I think I'm probably really going to need to possibly bring the camera over a little bit more just to give you a better demonstration. Okay, that's good. Alright, I just needed a little bit more room to kind of demonstrate what's going on. Now, with a crossover step, what we're doing is we're doing exactly what it says, which is we're going to cross our feet. Now, in most cases with this crossover step, it's really going to be a front, whichever way you're going. So if I'm going that way, this foot is going to cross over and basically come across the front before I even up. And then again, if I was going that way, this foot will come across and then go through. In terms of how sideways you get, well, that can depend. So some people will be able to maintain a front-on view to the ball and play. Other people will turn more and come back on. So it really depends on how far you have to go with this sort of crossover step. But that's a basic two-step crossover really, whereas you're from here and what you're going to do is basically just cross, play, and again, and you're really just crossing in front. That's a basic side-to-side crossover step. There is a forward and backwards crossover step, but again I'm going to need to just change perspectives on you a little bit because this angle isn't the best for showing. I just needed a little bit more space to be able to show you this a little bit more easily. In terms of a defensive crossover, there are a couple of options. Back in the days of the late 70s, the great Japanese chopper, Norio Takashima, what he used to do, if you read any of the old butterfly reports, in terms of his crossover footwork for defending, he used to advocate this idea of the left foot going in front and then the right foot coming back. So in a simple two-step crossover going backwards, what he would be doing was actually over, backwards, and then to come back, what he'd be doing is this foot would come back that way and reverse the process. So it would be this sort of over, back, back, front, over, back, back, front, or in that direction. Now just checking you can see this okay. You would again be going over, back, over, back. Now that's again fairly simple. Personally, when I move, I don't really chop like that a lot myself. I find I actually go the other way around, with the left foot coming behind a lot. Back, cross, back, cross. So for me it tends to be up there, and up there. So I don't cross in front, I cross behind and behind. Is one more correct than the other? No, not really. It's just going to be what you'll find is as a defender, if you're crossing with the left leg in front, what's going to happen is that's a little bit easier for getting out sideways and a little bit more difficult for getting backwards. Whereas if you cross leg behind, getting back is easier, but getting sideways is a little bit tougher. So again, it's a compromise. And even myself, if the ball's really out wide, I'm not going to go there and then come across. If the ball's really out wide, I will come in front. And it's not something I think about because I've trained it a lot. And that's the difference between sort of like having to think about where your feet are going versus training enough to just let them go. But again, the idea behind this crossover footwork is really just, instead of shuffling, what we're doing is at some point, one of the legs is going to come either behind and across, or it's going to come in front and across. And obviously this allows you to cover greater distances. Just let me raise this. That's better. Okay, this allows you to cover greater distances than a shuffle step, but at the expense of a little bit of balance, and because it really is a slightly longer process, you can find that your balance in terms of committing to actually going and stepping over can affect your recovery and your balance a little bit, whereas the shuffle step is naturally more balanced and easier to play the stroke. But there are times where you would not get there with the shuffle step, and you'll know it and you'll go to the crossover instead. Okay, let's just talk a little bit about one-step footwork and leaning. One-step footwork is exactly what it sounds like. It's for when you don't have time to shuffle step, or sometimes you may not have room to shuffle step. Okay? Now, the basics behind one-step footwork is, whereas you may normally shuffle to hit the ball, sometimes you're not going to have time to do the shuffle, or you may not want to only shuffle 6 inches to just hit the ball, but you don't want to lean. So those will be the times where you may actually just move only the 1 foot over to allow you to reach it. And one step usually being this idea of, okay, balls in front, you can do it in either direction. So you can play one-step footwork in terms of, say for example in the push, I can do one-step footwork like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And again on the backhand, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So that's perfectly possible. Now, it's a little bit counterintuitive to our idea of basically playing a forehand in that stance. So we're playing it from there. But it's done for a reason. You're sacrificing a little bit of perfect technique for extra speed to get to the ball and convenience. Plus sometimes with the table itself, especially for over the table, there are times when to get to a short ball, it's not convenient to bring the left foot forward to reach that short ball all the time. So it may be better to step that way and go there rather than trying to bring the left leg over and get blocked. That's why usually for a short ball on my backhand or a short ball on my forehand, I tend to step left to get in and right to get in, because trying to step in, maintaining that balance of here, your reach isn't as good as there. Okay? So it's again something of a trade-off. But this idea between the one-step footwork is really just a matter of when the ball's in a position where it's either not convenient, such as very short over the table, so a shuffle step isn't convenient, or if you're in a position here and the ball's only a tiny little bit further, you've got a choice of leaning, which might throw you off balance, shuffle stepping, which for 6 inches worth of movement or a foot worth of movement, do you really want to shuffle step when you could just take a little step with 1 foot and reach it easily? The decision on what's better is really, that's a personal decision, but it's perfectly valid to do. Okay? And one-step footwork is really just that idea of step and recover. Don't forget to recover. Some people step and stay, and now their legs are wider than what they're normally used to. You know, so they step, stay, and they're in trouble. If you're going to do one step, you've got to push back. You've got to come back and recover. Always important to recover. Okay? But that's just simple one-step footwork to allow you to do that. Also, let's just talk a little bit about leaning. The use of leaning instead of footwork and just leaning around. Again, I need to really bring you a different perspective, so I'm just going to move the camera. What I've talked about so far is really just 3 basic footwork techniques. That of shuffling across, that of using crossover footwork, and using simple one step and coming back. Those are your fundamentals, they're your basics. Now, commonly, it's in typical advice you find from coaches around on the net or basic level, intermediate level players, they'll say, okay, use those footwork techniques and shuffle step and crossover step. And quite often they'll even say, don't one step because it's bad. And never lean. Don't want to lean because that's bad. And sometimes there are cases where that's what you've got to do. You've got to one step, you know, for a purpose. Again, if I'm here and the ball's coming very short, coming there and trying to reach is quite awkward for me. And again, the same in the back end. Trying to come there is awkward. So for me, it's much better, rather than trying to sort of shuffle there, it's much easier to come across with one step and reach balanced and more easily. And that works better for me. So there are times when one step makes more sense than shuffling or crossing. There are also times when leaning is actually your best solution. When you are put under enough pressure, when the ball is coming at you so fast that you do not have time to do a good shuffle step, a good one step, or a good anything, then that's when you've got to lean. You know, and that is then your best solution. And table tennis is not necessarily about trying to do getting yourself so good that you can do the perfect thing all the time. I mean, sure, it would be nice if you could shuffle step to every ball. And if your footwork was so good, that would be great. But there are times when you'll be here, you'll be waiting, you've played a shot, you're recovering back, and your opponent's already on the ball and he's hit it back to you, and you don't have time to shuffle again to play it, or even just take one step. All you can do, if that ball's coming at you here, is basically lean out of the way, get your body out of the way, and improvise a stroke on either direction. So again, so if the ball's coming here, you may lean and swing. Backhand's a little bit different because usually if the ball's coming to your backhand, you don't have to lean too much here. You may have to lean over to reach it that way. And sometimes you may have to lean that way. So, but it's usually the ones into about here where you have to lean there to be able to play a forehand. Sometimes that's just what you've got to do. Now the important thing is this comes back to when I was talking about having the fundamentals in place to allow you to do more advanced things. Now if your stance is narrow and your knees aren't bent, that makes your centre of gravity very high. So again, as someone who's moderately tall, if I'm standing like this and the ball comes here and I don't have time to step or shuffle, if I lean and play this, what am I going to do? I'm going to play it, I might make it, and I'm going to fall over because my centre of gravity is so high and my legs are so narrow. So what it means is a lean at this point is a one-shot solution. It might get the ball back, but if my opponent gets the next one back, I'm basically stuffed. Whereas if I am low, if I am legs spread, knees bent, good low centre of gravity, and the important thing here is you can see how my legs have come out wide to the side. If the ball now comes here, I can lean, and I can play, and I can come back. It's almost like, to give an analogy, it's almost like the big clowns with the big rubber feet. Okay? Now they can stand up straight and go, and then come back. We can't. Okay? So there's no way that we're going to be able to sort of be narrow and lean and then come back. We're going to fall over. Whereas if you can be low, then those times when you just don't have time to shuffle step, you're under too much pressure. If you're low and balanced and in a good ready position, ball comes here, lean, play, come back. Ball's out too wide, lean, play, and it's a bit tougher that way. You'd probably lean and then come and do that, which is still better than lean, fall over. I would much rather go lean and be balanced. But essentially that leaning, that ability to basically from here, do that and play, or there and play, and manufacture a shot and give yourself room, that's an important skill. But unless you have the fundamentals of your stance, which is a good wide stance, knees bent, leaning forward, if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to lean successfully and come back for the next shot. If you do have that, what you now have, if you do have the basics of your stance right, you have another option for when you're under pressure, and another option to be able to get out of the way and still make a shot and come back and still be balanced to the next one. That's got to be a good thing. Okay? Definitely better than trying to shuffle and getting caught, or trying to step out of the way and getting stuck. It may be better to lean and play. So again, it's not black and white. There are grey areas, and that's why you will see the pros sometimes will lean. They're playing against another professional who's putting them under a lot of pressure. They don't have time to step out of the way, so they just lean over and play the shot and get the job done and come back. If they can not lean, they'd rather not, but they will if they have to. But in order to make that leaning work, you need a good fundamental base. And if you don't have that, if your footwork is too upright, or your torso is upright, you don't have the lean, if you have stiff knees, forget about it. Leaning is, you might get the ball back, but you're never going to get the next one. So just to recap a little bit on that footwork, is really we have those 4 basic techniques. We can shuffle, which usually should be our preferred option where possible. We can cross over, which is usually used to cover bigger distances, sideways or in and out. We can one step, which makes sense in certain situations where we don't need to move a lot, and a shuffle would be overkill. And also when playing over the table when it's inconvenient to shuffle step or use anything else. And there's leaning, when we're under pressure and we have to bend our bodies to give ourselves room to swing and manufacture a shot. And all of them have their place. Being able to go from one to another as requirements dictate, that's basically practice. Having good basic fundamentals and working them over and over and over in training, so that when it comes to matches, you don't have to consciously think about what footwork to use, you just do it. And for that, there's no substitute for good quality practice. But those are really the basic footwork fundamentals. And again, coming back to the idea of it's not how pretty you look, whether you look pretty, whether you look awkward, it's basically whether you are balanced, whether you get to the ball in time, whether you play the stroke and finish balanced, and whether you're smart enough with your feet to start moving to the position that's going to put you in the best spot to recover, to get to the next ball. Because when you play a stroke, you may not You don't play a stroke and necessarily automatically run to where the next stroke's going to be. You play your stroke and start moving to the position that's going to put you central to cover all the angles. So a beginner player runs from stroke to stroke, runs to the stroke, runs to the stroke. A good player plays the stroke, knows that basically around about here is the place to be to cover everything. So he plays the stroke, starts moving towards that position, and then moves to play the next stroke, or moves towards position, comes back. So beginners move from stroke to stroke and they react. Better players move to that position that puts them in the best area to cover everything, and they're constantly moving towards that area. Okay? And that's a little snippet of the difference between beginner footwork and more advanced thinking in terms of your footwork. But again, that's something we can cover a little bit later. Okay? But again, that's my footwork basics. Thanks for listening, and I hope you've learned something that's of use.